So today we are hearing from Satish Kumar, and as part of our Climate Action Lab. And it is an absolute honour to welcome Satish to our virtual Hawkwood. I am sitting in the Hawkwood Library and Satish is in his home. And today we're going to hear from Satish about how COVID has impacted the world, but also how the climate crisis is an even greater threat to our world and how those two can interrelate. But first of all, I'd just like to introduce Satish. So Satish has been a dear friend of mine for 15 years now. And Satish and I first met at Dartington and we worked together on a Tagore festival. And then the job at Hawkwood came up and Satish said, you should go for that. And he gave me his blessing. And since then, Satish has helped us at Hawkwood and has given talks at our Seed Festival and has also come to do our year-round program. So it's wonderful to welcome Satish to our online program now for the first time. So Satish is a former monk and long-term peace and environmental activist, and he has been quietly setting the global agenda for change for over 50 years. He was inspired in his early 20s by the example of the British peace activist Bertrand Russell, and Satish embarked on an 8,000-mile peace pilgrimage. Carrying no money and depending on kindness and hospitality of strangers, he and a colleague walked all the way from India to America and to deliver a packet of peace tea to the leaders of the world's then 4 nuclear powers. In 1973, Satish settled in the UK, becoming the editor of the well-renowned Resurgence magazine, a position he held until 2016. And indeed at Hawkwood, we love getting Resurgence magazine. We're always very excited when it pops through our letterbox. So thank you for that. Yeah. So in his 50th year, Satish undertook another pilgrimage, again carrying no money, but this time he walked 2,000 miles to the holy places of Britain, a venture he describes as a celebration of his love of life and nature. And since the year 2000, Satish has been awarded numerous honorary doctorates. And he is also a member of the Advisory Council of the Gross National Happiness Centre of Bhutan, who have also visited Hawkwood, which is wonderful. They're a fantastic organisation. So Satish has written many, many, many books, and his recent one, he started with No Destination, which was first published by Green Books in 1978 and has sold over 50,000 copies. Amazing. And he's also the author of You Are, Therefore I Am, A Declaration of Dependence, The Buddha and the Terrorist, Earth Pilgrim, Soil, Soul as Society, and more recently, Elegant Simplicity, which is your recent book, isn't it?
That's right.
So Satish, as I've explained, has been a huge inspiration to me personally, and I'm delighted that he is joining us here today to speak about what we can learn from COVID-19 to address the even greater crisis of climate change. So over to you, Satish. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. It is my great pleasure to speak with you and for Hawkwood College. And what you have been doing over the years is absolutely inspiring for me as well. So the inspiration is mutual. And it is my great pleasure and joy to do something with Hawkwood College. Now, COVID crisis is a kind of cry from the earth. Humanity has mistakenly thought that we are very powerful and therefore we can conquer nature. We can subjugate nature. We can steal the secrets of nature for human use or sometimes human abuse. Now the COVID crisis is saying that I'm afraid human beings are not as powerful as you think. Humans are not separate from nature. Humans are as much nature as anything else. Because the moment you start to think, or we human beings start to think that we are separate from nature, and then we can dominate nature, or we can conquer nature, or we can just steal the secrets of nature for our economic growth, for our profit, for more production, more consumption, whatever. That separation is the cause of COVID crisis, because COVID crisis has come due to our encroachment of the natural habitat. We have been expanding the human footprint on wider and wider and wider scale. We have been taking over more and more land, destroying rainforests, putting plastic and other pollution in the oceans, putting chemicals and fertilizers and pesticide on the land, turning land into factory farms, putting animals in factory farms. All our activities have been destroying nature and encroaching the natural environment. So, so then what happens? The animal viruses have no other place, so they get in the food chain, and therefore our food has been contaminated by the animal viruses, and this is why this, and then we have a globalization, global trading, global traveling, global economy. So as a trade and goods can travel around the world, also viruses can travel around the world. And so that coronavirus has now come all over the world, and we are facing this tremendous crisis all over the globe. So this crisis may be giving us an opportunity. Any crisis can also be an opportunity if we look at it wisely and use it wisely. So for me, this crisis is an opportunity to look at our relationship with the natural world. And we have to learn to live in harmony with nature. So first lesson is to change our attitude towards nature. And we have to start to think that nature and humans are not separate. We are as much nature as the forests, the mountains, the oceans, the animals, the rivers, the birds, all the natural, because we all have come from the same one single origin. We have all come from the Big Bang in scientific terms. At the time of the Big Bang, there was nothing but gases and then water. And then over the billions of years, evolution has evolved, creating life and creating diversity of life on this planet Earth. And so then we have mountains, and we have forests, and we have animals, and we have a human. So we have all come from the same source. So we are one. The all natural world, all the forests and mountains and oceans and animals and birds are our ancestors. We are the children of nature. So nature and humans are one. No separation, no dualism, unity of life. Unity of life is the fundamental principle that we need to remember and learn. So the moment we have that, then we can say that we are made of the same elements as nature. Forests and mountains and animals are made of earth, air, fire, water. Humans are also made of earth, air, fire, water. And as humans have consciousness, nature also has consciousness, because we are nature. Nature is alive. The old story is that nature is a dead, inanimate. The mountains are just dead rocks, and the whole earth is a dead rock. This idea has to change. And like Gaia theory of James Lovelock, this is the new science and new story, that earth is a living organism, not a dead rock. And nature is not a machine. Nature is alive. Nature is a living organism. And nature has as much consciousness as humans have consciousness. Nature has intelligence as humans have intelligence. Nature has memory as humans have memory. As Rupert Sheldrake, another great scientist, has talked about the morphic resonance, which means nature has memory. And so this way, Gaia, which is a new science, and Rupert Sheldrake, a new science, this way we can see the unity of nature. But this new science has always been there in our poetry, for example. William Blake said, nature is the imagination itself. Nature is the imagination itself. So nature has imagination, or nature is imagination itself. And Shakespeare said the same thing. Shakespeare talked about tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. This is the ancient wisdom of our poets, romantic poets, and Shakespeare and William Blake, and many other, Shelley and Keats and Wordsworth, and many other poets have known this truth, this eternal truth. But the scientific age, the age of rationalism and pure reason and materialism, forgot that. And materialistic science says that only thing you can have, or whatever we have, whatever exists, can be measured. So what cannot be measured does not exist. So imagination cannot be measured, consciousness cannot be measured, and therefore that does not exist. Spirituality cannot be measured, that therefore it cannot exist. So only thing what can be measured exists. That is the old science, mechanistic science. And so the new science and the new story is the science of living organism, earth, and a living organism, nature. This attitude change is necessary if we want to address the even bigger problem of our time, which is climate change. A coronavirus may have a vaccine, but climate change has no vaccine. Climate change can only be mitigated by our reduction in consumption and production and carbon emission and our footprint on planet Earth. We have used nature as a resource for the economy. Nature is an instrument for making more profit, making more production, more consumption. So the nature has become a resource for the economy. That has to change if we want to address the great challenge and the great crisis of climate change. We have to say that nature is not only or merely a resource for the economy. Nature is a source of life itself. Actually, nature is life itself, even not a source of life, but life itself. So the moment we shift our thinking from nature being subservient to economy or a resource for the economy, but nature as life, then we will treat nature differently. If you see nature only as a resource for the economy, then you treat nature as a resource and use it as you like. And so we have been waging war with nature, and we have been treating nature as if it is something we can just use. So we have been cutting down the rainforest. We have been putting plastic in oceans. We have been destroying our soil and all that I already mentioned. And so the moment we realize that nature is a source of life, we start to revere nature. We start to respect nature. We have to start to treat nature. And as we recognize human rights, we start to recognize the rights of nature. I am all in favor of human rights. I believe in human rights. I support human rights. I uphold human rights. But human rights are part of the rights of planet Earth. Human rights are subservient or an integral part of rights of nature. The forests also have rights. Animals also have rights. The oceans also have rights. Oceans have rights to remain clean and pure and uncontaminated. And rainforests have rights to remain as they stand in the Amazon and in Indonesia and anywhere they are. So when we recognize the rights of nature, then we can say how we uphold and respect and revere these rights of nature and do not engage in anything which will diminish the rights of nature and diminish the life of nature. That is the most important change in our attitude and in our values that we need in order to address the climate change. Of course, humans are very innovative, and innovation is a good thing. And we will innovate some technology, and we can find way of reducing our carbon emission and using, instead of fossil fuel, maybe we will create renewable energy. That is a good thing, and I support that. But even if we don't change our attitude towards nature and have lots and lots of renewable energy, and we have everywhere windmills and everywhere solar panels and everywhere nuclear power, we may have reduced the carbon emission, but we have not changed the attitude, and therefore our exploitation of nature, our subjugation of nature, our conquering of nature will continue. And then if we solve the problem of one kind, there'll be a problem of another kind. So we need not only to treat the symptoms of climate change, but we have to treat the causes of climate change. That is the fundamental necessity and the kind of imperative that we have now. And the causes of climate change are that we have been encroaching and using nature and subjugating nature rather than respecting nature and upholding the rights of nature. That is the change that we need to bring in order to address the climate change issues. Of course, 2021 is going to be a very important year. Because of COVID crisis, we are waking up, and there are lots and lots of people around the world are realizing that our relationship with natural world has to change, and we have to learn to live in harmony with nature, and we have to learn to live within our means and within our limits, because our freedom cannot be without limits. A good freedom can only be practiced and experienced within good limits. Like a river flows within the limits of two banks. If the two banks are not there, then the river will become a flood and will damage and destroy and will create havoc. Therefore, the freedom of the river is only possible within the limits of two banks. In the same way, we humans have freedom to live with nature, but within the limits. And what are our limits? That we have to always explore and understand and be aware of. So the moment we live within the nature, within the limits of nature and in harmony with nature, then we have to recognize that our economy has to change. And our economy at the moment is a linear economy. So we take from nature, mining, oil digging, all the minerals, forests, soil, everything from nature we take. Use it, but we don't use it even enough, and waste it, and then throw it away in the landfills or in the ocean or in the soil. So that is creating waste and pollution and contamination of the environment and emission of the carbon, and that creates global warming and climate change. So we have to change this linear economy to cyclical economy. Cyclical economy is the economy of nature. We have to learn from nature. Nature is our teacher. Nature is our mentor. In nature, there's no waste, there's no pollution, and there's no carbon emission, and there's no linear economy. Economy of nature is a cyclical economy. When as spring comes, we have leaves, then we have blossom, then we have fruit, apples and pears and other fruit, and then we have those fruits, but those fruits which did not get eaten, the fall comes, the leaves fall, the fruit fall, they become soil again. And that soil becomes the nourishment of the tree. And the trunk receives the nourishment from the soil and from the leaves back. And then during the winter time, it is hibernating and then digesting all that nourishment from the leaves and the fruit which goes into the soil, and then that becomes again life-sustaining and life-giving spring, and we have a new leaves and new blossom and new fruit, and this is abundance. Nature is abundant. There is no scarcity in nature. So we can live an abundant life, but without waste and without pollution. So if we want to address the climate change, we have to change our economy, and we have to turn our linear economy into cyclical economy. That is the lesson of climate change, and that is the lesson of COVID crisis. This is my view. So once we have changed that, then humans also become part of nature. Then we are receiving all the gifts of nature. We receive fruit, we receive wood, we receive our clothes from nature, we receive our food from nature, we receive everything. That is no problem. I'm not saying that we have to live hair shirt life, or we have to live a poor life and we cannot live good life. We can live good life in this cyclical economy, but we should take whatever nature gives us as a gift from nature, and with gratitude and with humility. At the moment, the root cause of, spiritually speaking, the root cause of climate crisis and COVID crisis is human arrogance. That we can take what we like. Nature is only for there. We are superior to nature. We are higher species, and somehow we have more rights than other species. This arrogance has to go, and we have to receive all the gifts of nature: food, clothes, wood, furniture, shoes, houses, whatever we have, as a gift from nature, and treat the gifts of nature with reverence, with respect, and with care, and not waste and not pollute and not destroy. If we can have that humility, and the word humility is very important for humans, because humility and humanity come from the same root. In Latin, the word is humus, and humus means soil, and also humus means humility. Humility, humanity, they all come the same root. And why soil is called humus? Because it's always humble. It's always under your feet. It's never arrogant. And whatever you do to soil, you dig it, you trample on it, you build on it, and still when you put one seed in the ground, it will give you 1,000 fruit in the end. And so that humility of soil, we have to learn. So without humility, there cannot be humanity. Arrogance and humanity don't go together. Arrogance and humanity is like chalk and cheese. And this is at the moment happening. Humanity and human beings have become too arrogant and treating nature as if something down there and we are superior. So if we can change those values, then of course we can use technology, renewable energy, and many other innovation, which is good. But only technological fix is not going to solve our problems. We need to have this dual change: the external change of technology, outer change of our economic systems, outer change of our industrial system. All that change is necessary, but the inner change, the inner transformation of our consciousness, inner transformation of our values, and learning to be humble and receiving everything from nature as a gift, and returning back to nature, and creating this cyclical economy. That is an inner transformation. I call it a kind of spiritual ecology, or you're going to call it deep ecology, where we recognize the intrinsic value of nature. And not value nature only in terms of her usefulness to humans. So this spiritual ecology, reverential ecology, ecology of love, ecology of humility, if we can have that, as well as change in technology, change in economic system, and renewable energy, all those things of outer change, these two together, inner and outer transformation together, can solve the problem of climate change and can solve the problem of COVID-19. And humanity can live for long time, for millions of years to come. We have to create an economic system and social system and political system which is not there for 5 years or 10 years or 500 years, but 5 million years or 10 million years. We don't know. Our economy has to be such that can be eternally there. And that has to be only if it's a cyclical economy and without waste and without pollution. So this is my view in nutshell. Humanity and nature are one, and we have to live in harmony with nature if we want to solve the problem of climate change and the problem of COVID-19. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say a few words about this spiritual and philosophical dimension of climate change. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Satish. That has been absolutely inspirational. And what is so fascinating is that in the last 2 climate action labs we've run, one of the most tricky things to actually put on we create these 10-point plans. What are we going to make action? And what are we going to take forward in the world to address climate change? And some of the things that have come out have been about how difficult it is around behavior change. And I think what you have just beautifully summed up is around the values that are needed, the inner work that's needed in order to make all the other actions flourish, because without that, then we won't be able to go on the journey. And I think that the COVID period has actually allowed us that time of reflection. And I hope that it will also enable us to come out with a deeper understanding and reflection time to make those actions real and a reverence for nature. So it has been a joy as ever to see you, and I'm hugely grateful for your time and your insights, and it's been wonderful. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and I hope that your climate lab creates a new awareness among people, because the consciousness change and awareness is the first step. Once we become aware of what is reality, what is truth, then we will practice it, and we will change our behavior, and we will change our attitude. And so what you are doing is creating that awareness. And I think there is a good situation now. More and more people are becoming aware, and the COP26 in November in Glasgow, that will be a very high point. And at this moment, recently, we had 2 speeches from the Secretary General of the United Nations. In the first speech, he spoke about making peace with nature, which is fantastic, because UN was established in order to make peace with people. Now, the Secretary General of the United Nations is saying that we need to make peace not only with people, but also with nature. That's a wonderful initiative as a symbol and as a kind of symbol of changing awareness and changing attitude. And the second speech he made is that world has to declare a climate emergency. Now, that is a very good step coming from the United Nations and the Secretary General himself. And there was a conference called Climate Ambition Summit recently, sponsored by the UN and French government and British government, which is a good thing. And they talked about how we can address the climate issue. And so United Nations is taking a big step, and this COP26 in November will be an important highlight of the year. So I think we should use the government initiatives and so on to create a grassroots movement, because governments can only respond if there's enough public opinion and a grassroots awareness in the society. And for me, the real superpower is not United States or Soviet or Russia or China or any government, France or England. The superpower is the power of public opinion. So if we can create strong public opinion and people start to demand this climate consideration and respect for environment and respect for nature, then I think politicians will come to you and me and us people and say, we want your vote. And we will say that you can have our vote only if you behave in a proper way and look after our precious planet Earth and not destroy it and not pollute it and not waste it and not create more and more carbon emission. And then they will have to listen to us. So for me, people's movement is very important. And the climate change, the movement is emerging, like Extinction Rebellion. That's a great movement and based in non-violence and love, which is wonderful. And then Greta Thunberg, she is organizing things, and young boys and girls around the world are going for Friday for the future and striking on Friday. And then we have wonderful David Attenborough, who has really changed his mind. He has been presenting these many good natural history programs on television, but now he's coming out and talking about climate change and global warming and care for the nature. So from old generation of David Attenborough to young generation of Greta Thunberg and everybody in between, through Extinction Rebellion and Friends of the Earth and Greenpeace and WWF and Schumacher College and Resurgence and Hawkwood College, we are all part of this big movement of awareness and movement of change and transformation. And so I think we are at a good point. This COVID crisis has been an opportunity and is an opportunity, and the climate change should be addressed by people as much as by the governments, industry and business, and also universities and colleges. There should be new kind of learning, the how after our education we are going to do something which will be good for the planet, and not only getting a big salary and big job and a big house and a big car for myself. That is not the purpose of education. So at every level, if we bring this kind of awareness, then I think there is a hope for humanity, and we can. Because this industrial system has been built by humans. It can be changed by humans. We can change it. So I have a great hope in the public opinion and humanity. And 2021, let us hope, will be a great year for addressing the problem of climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Satish. It's been an absolute honor and inspiration. And I love your intergenerational discussions today. And I'm thinking all about those future generations, if we can make those changes today, who will thank us going forward, if we can make the change now for our ancestors going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also we have to learn something from our indigenous people. What indigenous people believed in intergenerational responsibility. The Navajo people in the North American indigenous communities, Navajo people believed that every action we take today, we must consider what will be the impact of this action after 7 generations.
Yes.
That is the kind of wisdom of the indigenous cultures and indigenous people that we have to remember. And we have to think that how our action today will impact the future generations. So intergenerational is very important. And this is why David Attenborough and Greta Thunberg, this young, old and young, together working is a wonderful example.
It is. Well, thank you so much, Satish, for all your knowledge, wisdom and sharing of your thoughts today. It's been an absolute inspiration. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.